Hello, this is Janet Gowan welcoming you to Love Letters Live. And today's guest is so interesting. We're going to start right in. I want to introduce Reverend Steve Pieters, and who has quite a story. And by the way, for those of you who, like I do, have a fondness for when the plot keeps thickening, this is the story for you. And I shouldn't call it a story. It's a life tale.
History. Yeah.
So just to catch people up a little bit, Reverend Pieters, and how do your congregants call you? How do they refer to you?
Oh, Reverend Steve or just Steve.
Okay, you seem like an informal, easy to
Yeah.
approach human being. I think that's probably what it takes to be a great reverend.
Well, I think you're right. I think it,
Yes.
it does pay to be sociable. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. But more, yes. Okay. Well, let's get to you. So you've been living, just for starters, with AIDS for 30 years.
More than that.
More than that.
For closer to 40. I first got diagnosed in 1982 with GRID. So that's 39 years ago now. And GRID was what they were calling AIDS back then, gay-related immunodeficiency.
I never heard that.
Oh
Okay.
yeah, yeah, GRID. And then when they realized it wasn't just affecting gay men, they changed it to AIDS.
I
Uh,
see.
and but the definition of AIDS that they came up with was you had to have one of five specific diseases and infections, opportunistic infections or cancers, and I didn't have any of those. So they knew my immune system was severely deficient in 82, and thus the diagnosis of GRID. But when they started using the word AIDS, they said, well, you don't have one of those five, so you are now living with ARC, AIDS-related complex.
I see.
And then in April of 84, I was diagnosed with stage 4 lymphoma and
Oh.
Kaposi sarcoma. And that's what gave me my diagnosis of
So
full
what did you do medically with that diagnosis?
medically.
Chemotherapy or
No, there were no treatments. The doctor said, we have no treatments, and your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to stay alive long enough for us to find a way to treat it. But I was given 8 months to live in
my
April of
goodness.
'84. So she also said to me, you know, not everybody is going to die from AIDS. It looks that way now, but not everybody will. And if 1 in a million survive, why not believe that you're going to be that 1 in a million?
Oh, what a perfectly wonderful, sensible philosophy.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, well that's good to know, and it's wonderful that you're still here. Um, I read somewhere that you had talked somehow about myths about AIDS that still need to be dispelled.
Well,
There's still myths that people misunderstand about AIDS,
yes. Well, one of the myths about AIDS is that it only affects gay men, and
but
that's
people still feel that.
oh, I hear that kind of thing every once in a while, or
Okay.
they think that it happens to people who are poor, or they think that it happens to people who are African, or it only happens to
Okay.
people who are so it happens to somebody else, but it
Oh,
it can happen to everybody, and a lot of people think it's not heterosexually transmitted, but it can be.
oh, often.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Well, let's move on now that we've kind of established that you're healthy and here.
Yes.
About you and Tammy Faye,
Okay.
and I know we're gonna focus on that. But how did you first meet her?
Well, I, she, her,
Oh, let me ask it this way: what was your first impression of her when you first learned about her and her?
oh, well, I had been watching her and Jim Baker on PTL for a while because my neighbor and I, who kept me company while I was so sick in the early 80s, she and I just found them vastly entertaining.
Okay,
We
that's what I was going to ask you. What is her appeal?
we didn't agree with her or their theology at all, but
Right.
she was just so outrageous, and and just the makeup and the singing and all of the different aspects of her that came across on PTL, I thought were outrageous and sometimes very funny, but also very appealing. I mean, I kept watching because I found her very entertaining.
I think so many people did find her entertaining. Did she seem dangerous to you?
Dangerous in what sense?
Well, her philosophy about, what they considered not acceptable lifestyles, any kind of, I mean, they were both very opposed to same gender relationships, right?
Well, they were very conservative evangelicals,
Uh-huh.
but it's not clear to me that they were completely against same-sex
Okay.
relationships.
Interesting.
Um, I thought going into the interview that she might try to convert me
Okay,
to.
so I want to get to that. How did she approach you? And what was your initial reaction when she asked to interview you? Were you
Well, a friend of mine, Reverend Ken South, was the director of the AIDS project in Atlanta, Aid Atlanta. Reverend Ken South heard from Tammy's producer, who had been looking for some gay man with AIDS all through the South and East to go on the show with her,
for what reason?
to be interviewed,
No,
because
no, no. But what was
Tammy,
her motivation, do you think?
Tammy Faye wanted to be the first
Uh,
person to interview a gay man with AIDS
I
on,
see.
on conservative evangelical TV.
Hmm.
And she, uh, I think that she wanted to show that she was affirming of us. Um, I didn't know that when Ken South told the producer about me, and the producer called me and said, "Would you be willing to go on and be interviewed about being gay and having AIDS?" And I said, "Well, I would insist that it go out live so that you can't edit it to serve
Oh,
your
good.
purposes.
Yes.
And also, um, I have to be caught. I have to wonder whether she's going to come down on me for being gay."
That's what I was wondering when, if that struck you. Yes.
They gave me every assurance that no, she would not be like that she would be very affirming, and let me tell my story without trying to impose any kind of conservative theology on me. So I agreed to go on the show, and they originally sent me 2 first-class plane tickets to Charlotte, North Carolina. I live in Los Angeles,
Hmm.
and um, I needed an assistant to come with me because I was so sick,
Oh,
doing chemotherapy at the time. There had
oh,
finally
you
come up with
were.
a treatment.
Yeah.
They'd finally come up with a treatment, and
Okay.
it was an experimental drug and a chemo that was very toxic. Anyway, as we were headed out the door to the airport, the producer called and said, "Send back the tickets. Tammy's sick and decided to cancel the interview."
Oh no.
And then so we were very disappointed, but we sent back the tickets. And then the next day, the producer called me back and said, "Tammy's feeling better and she wants to do the interview, but she wants to do it by the first ever satellite hookup, first for PTL. First time they'd ever done a satellite hookup. They were very excited about
Now,
that.
what did that mean? I'm not aware of a satellite hookup for video.
Well, it's like what we're doing here.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I was in a studio in Ontario, California, and she was in her
Oh, so
studio
you
in
didn't have to get on a
Charlotte.
plane to go. Ah, okay.
Exactly. And it
Okay.
was the first time that PTL had ever tried to do that. And satellite interviews were still kind of new at the time. So,
Yeah. So talk about the interview. How did it start? I mean, what
yeah.
was your initial hello kind of tentative?
Yeah, well, we talked for a few minutes before the interview began. I was in a dark studio with just these lights on me and a camera in front of me. I could not see her. I had her in an earpiece,
Hmm.
And so as soon as they hooked me up, Tammy said hello, and I went, "Oh, hi," and we talked a little bit, and she said that this would be on Tammy's house party, which was one of the shows on the PTL 24-hour network, and it was her show, and she said that it's kind of like the Phil Donahue of PTL. We don't have to talk about Jesus, and as a matter of fact, we probably won't. But we want to be the first to interview a gay man with AIDS, and we're very pleased that you agreed to come on. And she thanked me profusely, and told me, "Oh, I'm so courageous to be willing to talk about it publicly."
And especially with somebody who had her philosophy about it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the interview began, and she was just charming and wonderful, and then she she started, after initial pleasantries, she started asking me about when I first knew that I was different.
Uh-huh.
And so I answered that as best I could. And
What was your answer to that? Just curious.
Oh, I knew I was different from as far back as I can remember. I didn't like the things that other boys liked, and I liked things that other boys didn't like. And, I was not into sports at all. And I was a sissy boy. I was a fairy. They called me, the other kids called me a fairy and a sissy.
Was that painful?
It was, because I knew they were right. And it was something to be ashamed of back in the 50s.
I remember that.
It was it was not spoken of. And when it was spoken of in very derogatory terms. So I had no Will and Grace or Ellen or any LGBT role models to look at. For the longest time, I thought I was the only one in the world.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to laugh, but
no.
Well, let me ask you, did you have friends? I mean, who did you play with?
Oh, yeah. Oh, of course. Yeah, I had friends.
So you weren't isolated in your...
No. I was a very solitary kind of guy. Little boy, I played the piano a lot.
Nice.
So that took a lot of time. We're alone. And I was a good student. I was always the best in my class, the smartest kid, teacher's pet. And so I spent a lot of time studying. But I did have friends. And one of my friends is Trip, a fellow named Trip, who we've been friends since we were 4, and he's still my good friend.
That's so nice. That's the best. What about your parents? Were they supportive of the kind of child you were?
Well, yes and no. I mean, my mother was very, very warm and affectionate and loving, and she loved the fact that I loved to sing and perform and play the piano.
I was wondering, sure.
All that sort of thing. Dad, on the other hand, Dad was the varsity wrestling coach and the math teacher at one of the largest boys' prep schools in New England, Andover, Phillips Andover. And he was, I think, embarrassed by my sissy. And he, I learned to be ashamed of it from him, because he kind of said, he never said anything, but he sensed it, and he would disapprove of my, being so interested in Hercules or Superman or, some of the things that I found just absolutely mesmerizing. And I loved musicals. I had this huge collection of show tunes, Broadway records, original cast albums, and which he had actually introduced me to.
I have a question about that. I've always been curious, why is that love of show tunes something attributed to gay men? Everybody loves show tunes. I don't get it.
Well, gay men have an affinity for show tunes, I think. Many. I mean, not all, but
they're not alone in that.
No, of course not. But it became a stereotype.
There you go. That makes sense.
Yeah.
All right, get back to, I didn't mean to take you so far off track, but I guess
No, no,
I gotta go back to Tammy Faye interview,
yeah,
because I know that this is going to be focused on in the movie The Eyes of Tammy Faye, correct?
that is,
Okay, go ahead.
it's a moment in the movie. Well, it's more than a moment, but it's kind of a turning point in the movie.
How was it a turning point in your life and in the movie?
Well, in my life, I became quite well known for surviving AIDS in the 80s.
Really?
I actually recovered. My cancers went into complete remission while I was on this experimental chemo. And once I survived the very toxic side effects, it took me a long time, but I got well in 1987 and I was well for 20 years. So I became known for the Tammy Faye interview. And because I had a videotape of it, uh, everywhere I went, they wanted me to bring the videotape and show the interview. And I became widely known for that. And I think it kind of, I mean, I was widely known because I'd survived AIDS when hardly anybody else did. But
Sure.
but also the Tammy Faye interview just kind of sealed it. You know, it was the affirmation that even Tammy Faye Baker, uh, you know, would be affirming
There's something so uplifting about that. You know, when people
uh,
have they're very entrenched in a particular negative view of something, and then they are able to somehow open themselves up to I'd like you to talk about that, because if everyone in the world could do that, we'd be a good world.
of course, yeah.
Yes. What do you
Well,
say about that?
what do I want
What do
about?
you say about that shift that she made and that people are capable of making from a very entrenched negative stereotype, hostile towards a group, to, okay, come on over, let's talk.
Well, I don't know that she ever totally bought the God hates gays. Or
Okay, good for her. Yes.
I don't think she ever totally bought that. I think that she probably realized that she differed from a lot of her peers
Oh,
about homosexuality. And in the movie, in an early scene, they have her and a group of televangelists, including Jerry Falwell, uh, at a table, and Tammy says something about, oh, I think God loves everybody, you know, and Jerry Falwell says, well, I'm very concerned about the homosexual agenda, and and Tammy says, really, why, or something like that, you know. And it's clear that early on in the film she has maybe a different attitude about homosexuality. And then as the movie progresses, it seems that there are ways in which Jim Bakker was maybe bisexual, and she began to see this. And so part of why she did the interview was to work out issues in her own marriage about,
how did she work those out? And good for her. Yes. How did she work those out?
well,
You know.
she asked me, what made you think you were gay, and what why did you feel there was no hope for you to be straight, and do you think you ever really gave women a fair try, and questions like that, which I answered to the best of my ability. And I one of the answers I had was, I thought it was disrespectful of the woman for me to try to, be sexual with her when I couldn't make a commitment. And
Uh-huh.
and she really liked that. She thought that was a really good answer. But and so she spent about, it was a 24-minute interview, and I'd say she spent half of it asking me about, sort of grilling me about how could I be sure that I was gay, and maybe I just hadn't given women a fair try.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Are you still, she's still with us, right?
No, she's died.
Oh, did
She,
she? I
she,
didn't realize that.
oh,
Okay. I
she
thought
got
she did, but then, okay,
she had, I think it was pancreatic cancer.
that's right.
And,
But
and
he died before she did, right?
oh, Jim Bakker is still alive.
Ah, he's the one who's still here. Okay.
Yeah.
Are
So
you in touch with anyone in that family?
I am in touch with their son, Jay Baker, and it's he. I posted something on Facebook about my interview with his mother, and he saw it, and he contacted me through Facebook and or Instagram, one of those, and and we have since become friends. And
Oh,
I
that
go to his Zoom service every Sunday, as well as my own at
yeah. This
Metropolitan.
is somehow this is just heart lifting.
Yeah, and
It has a whole aura of hope
yeah. Well,
for.
he told me that, I mean, he was 10 when the interview happened in 1985. And he told me that it changed not only Tammy, but it changed the whole family. Uh,
Really?
she started taking uh, taking her little boy, Jay, and her daughter, Tammy Sue, to metropolitan community churches and gay and lesbian events and pride parades. And she started taking them, the kids, to hospices and hospitals to visit people with AIDS. And she really, the interview, Jay told me, let him know that he could be who he is, and that he didn't need to be somebody else, which apparently he had thought he had to be before that. So that his mother would say, and God would still love him.
Oh,
And
this is
he's not gay, I should
yeah,
say,
yeah, I didn't assume. Yeah.
but he's different.
Okay.
He's
Okay.
very progressive, very liberal, beyond liberal. I mean, he's Christian, and he's very different theology than his father or mother had.
This whole story is so I can't wait till this movie comes out. I mean, Tammy Faye Baker
It's a
has
great
always,
movie.
I'm sure it is, and I love Jessica Chastain anyway,
Oh,
but yes,
she is incredible in the role. I mean, just an amazing performance.
you know,
I saw it last.
my mother used to have a kind of a borderline affection for Tammy Faye in that she used to say,
Yeah.
you know, if she didn't have to have him, she could be a really great country singer. Now,
Uh-huh.
my mother didn't know anything about country singers, but you know, she really had respect for this woman's talent. Okay, I have
Uh-huh.
to ask you something because I am about love letters, and my antenna is just going nuts here. Are you a
Yeah.
letter writer at all?
Am I what?
A letter writer.
A letter writer. Oh, yes. Oh my goodness. Yes.
Okay, and
Yep.
you know, you probably grew up writing them because we didn't have, you know,
I
texting.
did. Yeah.
I want to ask, because I have a thought. If you were to write a love letter right now, which I always like to ask people, to whom would it be?
Oh, wow. Well, I that's a hard question.
Okay, I'm
Uh,
sure it is because there's so many people in your life,
so many, I
but
love so many people. I think that if I had to write one letter, I mean, first of all, I would write a love letter to God.
oh, good. Okay, that's yes. Okay, so
And
and where would you mail that?
it's a good question. God, care of heaven. I don't know.
God, care of Reverend Steve Pieters, your address,
Yes, yes,
and
yes.
you know you're a big part of something very important historically,
Yeah,
right?
right. Well,
And when people find things that you've written, you know, 50, 100 years from now, they're going to have some treasure. But I'm just thinking, did it ever occur to you, and maybe you did this, a love letter to Tammy Faye Baker's son, Jay?
oh, that would be very interesting. I could write
Okay.
that letter. Yeah, because I do
I
love.
would, because you've got someone to mail it to.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
This, oh, that would be just something special.
yeah. He had me come and do a talk at his church, by Zoom, of course. But oh, I don't know, 6 months ago, and he had me do his radio podcast. Did a 45-minute interview with me about his mother and the interview and all of that.
Yes.
So yeah, so I love him all to pieces. I mean, he's brilliant. He is so smart.
Well, I hope you're remembering everything that you're saying here because that's the like, dear Jay, and then that's your love letter. You know, so
Oh yeah,
often people, I don't imagine you ever get stuck for how to express yourself or what to write, but people
yeah,
sometimes say the most wonderful things.
Yeah.
But I don't really know that I could write that's the letter.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Dear Jay, you are so wonderful. You are so brilliant, and I love your intellect, and I love your passion, and I love your humanity.
And
Uh,
he knows what a difference this interview with his mother made in your life.
oh, absolutely. Yeah. No, we've talked about that,
Because
definitely.
when people don't throw these letters away, does he have children?
Yes, he does.
Because these kind of things just go down the generations. And
Right.
I'm thinking that in the next generation, like his grandchildren are going to find this letter.
Sure.
They're going to see what a legacy of intelligence and love and courage they came from.
Oh, absolutely.
Isn't that a gift?
Right. Yeah. I think that he inherited his parents' intelligence. I mean, both of his parents were very smart people.
All right.
They had tragic flaws, but don't we all? But theirs were magnified 100,000 times by their high visibility, their
Right.
public personas. Yeah.
Well, but don't we learn valuable lessons from flawed people?
Oh, definitely.
I mean, I don't know what we learn from perfect people, but
Yeah, right. I don't want to know a person.
don't bother me with them.
Yeah, right.
Oh, thank you so much for doing this with me. I
Yeah,
hope someday to get to meet you in person, and I
yeah,
hope
I hope
our paths
so.
cross again.
Yes, I hope so. That
And
would be great.
I can't wait to see the movie. Thank you, dear.
Oh, you're so welcome. Thank you
You're
for this opportunity.
just an astounding man,
Oh,
and it's just been an honor to meet you.
it's an
Okay.
honor to be on your show. Thank you.
Thank you, dear. I will talk to you later and on, I hope.
Okay, great.
But for now, I'll just tell you goodbye. Thank you.
All right. Bye.